What's up guys, Frost here, and today I want to share my PvE Mage pre-raid BiS and best in slot sets for Phase 1. I added multiple of each item slot to show some pieces that may be decent placeholders until you can get your actual pre-BiS item, and the list is based heavily on Infra's list that is on the Classic Mage Discord, but I did add and change some items based on the items we know that will or won't be available in Phase 1. I also added a second set of alternative items to give even more options, along with the drop rates to help you decide which item to pursue. I used AYZ's spell damage calculator to compare pieces to each other to determine the best in slot pieces, and if you want to be able to just do quick maths to compare pieces, then you will just need to remember 3 ratios. The first is that 1 spell power is worth about 8 intellect. The second is that 1% crit is equivalent to 8 to 10 spell power, which varies mostly from your hit chance, and the higher your hit means the more the crit is worth. And the last one, which is 1% hit, is worth about 12.5 spell power. However, the closer you get to hit cap, the closer the rate is 1% hit for 12 spell power, until you go over hit cap, or get to hit cap, at which point you no longer want hit. And with that being said, let's get into what pieces a Phase 1 mage wants to pursue. Starting with the Helm slot, you want to find a cloth headpiece that is of Frozen Wrath, that has at least 36 frost spell damage, with the highest possible being 41. The second option for the Helm is the green lens of Frozen Wrath, that can have up to 35 frost spell damage, but instead of being a BoE world drop, it's a BoE engineering item. And the last option for the Helm slot is the Dreamweave Circlet, which only has 21 spell power, but it only requires 250 tailoring to make and is BoE with really cheap mats. As for the best in slot headpiece, you will want to get an Arcanist crown from Gar in Molten Core. However, if your current headpiece has 36 spell power or more, then the Arcanist crown is not worth equipping until you get your tier 1 3-set bonus. Moving on to the necklace, you will want to try to get a Star of Mysteria from Balnazar in FrostLive. And this neck stands far and above the other options for a necklace because of the hit percentage. The next best necklace you can get is the Tooth of Gnar from General Dracasath in UBRS. However, keep in mind that this neck is much better for a healer, so there will be competition rolling on this item. Plus it has a lower drop chance than the Star of Mysteria, so it's definitely not worth farming unless you just happen upon one and no one needs it. Then the last option for a neck is finding a green BoE necklace that is of the Eagle or of Intellect. Sadly, there are not many pre-BiS caster DPS necklaces in Phase 1. Molten Core does drop the Choker of Enlightenment though, off Lucifron, which will be Mage's best in slot necklace through Phase 1. Next up is the shoulder slot, for which you want to get a Boreal Mantle from Warder Stilgus in BRD, and you'll definitely want to farm these shoulders at some point since they are your best in slot through all of Phase 1. If the Boreal Mantle doesn't drop in your BRD run, then you'll also get a chance at a Kentic Amis, which can be a good placeholder, and they drop off High Interrogator Gerston in BRD. Then the next best shoulders you can get are the Sunder Seer Mantle, which drop off Crystal Fang, which is the rare spider boss in LBRS. Moving on to the cloak, you will want to try to get your hands on an Archivist Cape of Frozen Wrath with 21 frost spell damage from Archivist Galford in FrostLive. If you can't get this one because it's BOP, then you can also just get any other of Frozen Wrath cape. Just try to get one with at least 15 spell damage to be better than the next best. However, the Archivist Cape of Frozen Wrath is best in slot through all of Phase 1 since it has spell damage and 4 MP5 on it. However, if you are just looking for a placeholder until you can get your Archivist Cape, then a good option can be the Sprite Caster Cape from Houndmaster Grebmar in BRD, or if you want to just craft a cape, then you can go with the Bright Cloth Cloak from Tailoring, but the pattern is a world drop, so keep an eye out for it on the auction house. Next is the chest piece, and yet again, the pre-BiS piece is also the best in slot piece for Phase 1, and that is the Robe of the Archmage. This chest, however, is a BOP tailoring chest that requires 300, and the recipe is a 10% drop chance off the Firebrand Pyromancers in LBRS. You can also just buy the recipe off the auction house if you don't want to farm it. However, if you don't plan on going tailoring, or you just want to have a placeholder while you get your mats for the Robe of the Archmage, a good option are the Freezing Lich robes that drop off Ross Frost Whisperer and Scholomance. And the last option is another tailoring robe, the Robe of Winter Night. A big bonus to this robe is that it is BOE, so another tailor can make them for you, and it only requires 285 tailoring, and the mats are cheaper. Next we have the wrist slot, which is another slot of Frozen Wrath gear, and the most spell damage you can get is 21, and the best bracers to have it on are the Flame Weave Cuffs of Frozen Wrath, and they also have 10 fire resist to help the healers. However, they are BOP from Lord Incendius and BRD, so if you can't get your hands on a good pair of those, then any plus 21 of Frozen Wrath bracers will work. And then eventually you will replace these with your tier 1 risks, the Arcanist bindings, but as with the Helm, you will want to wait to equip it until you have the 3 set. Moving on to the gloves, you will want to get a pair of Hands of Power from Quartermaster Zigris and LBRS, and these will be your best in slot all the way through phase 1. The second option is the Flame Weave Gloves, which are a 265 tailoring recipe that is a BOE world drop, and the last option are the Gloves of Spell Mastery, which is learned from a tailoring recipe that is a world drop. They don't give you quite as much DPS as the Hands of Power or the Frostweave Gloves, and they cost a lot of mats, but they do give 2% crit, so if you want to build a crit set for AoE or PvP maybe, then they could be an option. Next up is the waist, which is yet another slot where your pre-BiS item is also your best in slot item for phase 1, and that is Bangthok Sash. This belt drops off Okthor the Breaker in BRD. He is an arena mini-boss, so you have to get lucky twice, once to get him to spawn, and then to get him to drop the belt. One decent alternative to this is the Clutch of Andros, which drops off Kurtanos the Herald and Scholomance. And finally, your last okay option is the Dust Feather Sash from Solikar Flame Wreath in UBRS. For the leg slot, you will want to try to get a pair of Sky Shroud leggings from High Lord Omok in LBRS. These will eventually get replaced by the Netherwind pants that drop off Ragnaros. As for the alternatives for the leg slots, you can go with either the Frostweave pants, which are BOE pants that can be made for only a few mats as long as they can get the world drop recipe. Or you may have been lucky while leveling and gotten the Spell Shock leggings from ZF, which can be used as a placeholder, but they are a rare drop, so I wouldn't recommend farming these as an alternative. Moving on to the boots, you will want to watch the auction house for a pair of plus 30 damage of Frozen Wrath boots. These boots will last you all the way until you get a pair of Arcanist boots from Lucifron and MC. Once again, you will need to have all 3 tier 1 pieces on the BiS list before it will be worth putting on the boots. As an alternative to the Frozen Wrath boots, you can get a pair of Omnicast boots from Golem Lord Argolmok in BRD. Or if you happen to find a cheap pair on the auction house, then Wolf Runner shoes are another option, but they are a world drop, so they aren't really farmable. As for the ring slots in phase 1, the best rings you can get are 2 freezing bands, so you'll want to always have gold ready and be watching the auction house. Some good placeholder rings are the Eye of Orgrimmar or Songstone of Ironforge, which are from a quest to kill the last boss of BRD. Then another ring you can get is a Maiden's Circle, and this is also a world drop, but it won't be nearly as expensive as a freezing band off the auction house. And your last 2 options for a ring are the Cyclopean band from Okthor the Breaker, so you might get one while farming your Bangthok Sash. And finally, the last ring on my list is the Band of the Unicorn, which is another world drop, but this will be the cheapest option that you can buy off the auction house. Trinkets in phase 1 are quite limited for spellcasters, however we do have 2 good options that will last us through phase 1. The first is the Eye of the Beast, which you can get from a quest to kill Rend Blackhand in UBRS. Then for the second trinket, you will want to farm a Briarwood Reed from Jed runs in UBRS. Jed Rune Watcher is a rare, so you will have to reset the dungeon to get him to spawn, but once he is up, the trinket has a juicy 33% drop rate, making it not that bad to farm. Then eventually in MC you can get a Talisman of Ephemeral Power from 4 different bosses, Baron-Geddon, Gar, Golemag, or Magmadar, and this trinket is best used to put on for short fights, and then to put your Eye of the Beast back on while the talisman's cooldown resets. Another trinket that may be worth snagging for Phase 1 is the Burst of Knowledge from Ambassador Flamelash and BRD, as it has flat spell power, and its cooldown can help if you need extra mana for a long fight. Then you can also get Smokey's Lighter from a Stratholme quest to get some tobacco, which pairs well with Ramstein's Lightning Bolts from Ramstein the Gorger in Stratholme, and these two trinkets together can be used to do some decent extra burst on big AoE trash pulls, and then they can be swapped back out while the cooldowns reset. Then the last trinket I'll mention is the Blazing Emblem, which at least gives you some fire resist for Molten Core, which is better than an empty slot. Next we have the weapon slot, which has quite a few decent options for Phase 1. The best main hand you can get for all of Phase 1 is the Azure Song Mage Blade from Golemag the Incinerator, which will be very good for PvE and PvP. Until you can get your hands on one of those bad boys, you'll want to rock a Witchblade from Dark Master Gandling in Scholomance. Then the easiest placeholder to get is the Hypnotic Blade from Arcanist Doan in SM Library, meaning you can solo farm this one. Lastly, there's the Arbiter's Blade, which is nice for PvP because of the stamina, but it is also an okay placeholder for a PvE weapon, and it drops from Warder Stilgus and BRD. If you are rocking a main hand, then you also need an offhand, and the best one you can get for all of Phase 1 is the Drakestone of Frozen Wrath. It drops from the dragon bosses in Sunken Temple, but it has a relatively low drop chance and you have to roll a plus 20 frost damage random bonus to give it a total of plus 27 spell damage, and to top it off it's BOP. And since the item is not going to be realistic for many people to farm, a great option is the Spirit of Aquamentus, which you get along with the Lincoln's Boomerang at the end of a long quest chain that starts at the wrecked boat in Ungoro Crater. If you are more of a staff kind of guy, then you really only have two options for Phase 1, and they are both world drops. Those are the Elemental Mage Staff and the Staff of Jordan. These will both be a pretty penny on the auction house, but they are iconic staves that will make you smile every time you look at it. All that is left is the wand slot. The best wand that you can get for all of Phase 1 is a Of Frozen Wrath wand that has plus 13 spell damage on it, so just keep an eye out on the auction house yet again. The next best option is a Bone Creeper Stylus from Dark Master Gandling in Scholomance, and this wand is actually better if you are actually using your wand, but you shouldn't have to wand if you have the right consumables. And the easiest one to get is the Ice Fury wand, and that one you get from the Mage's Wand quest, and it has 9 frost damage on it. So it's very easy to get, and it is only a few spell power behind the BiS wand. The last wand that I will mention is from Molten Core, and that is the Crimson Shocker. Its stats aren't great, but if you are actually using the wand, then this is the highest DPS wand for Phase 1. And that concludes my Phase 1 Mage pre-raid BiS and BiS list. If I missed any items, please leave a comment below letting me know, and as usual, I will leave a link to the spreadsheet in the description. And if you liked the video, please leave a like, and if you like my content, hit that subscribe button to see future videos. Thank you for watching, and I will see you all on Azeroth.